of the market, but we're also in Australia. We're in exciting emerging countries such as Cambodia and Vietnam, also in Taiwan and South Korea. And then on a local level, we're in East Germany, Leipzig, around that area there. And then in 2016, LSH acquired the Birmingham and Manchester market area from Mercedes-Benz Retail Group. So we've got a turnover in the UK of £500 million, and we're a bit unique because we're 100% Mercedes-Benz, which is very few and far between, as we know, looking at other dealer groups across the world, but even in the UK is very unique. And Daimler have a 15% stake in our business from a global perspective. So yeah, a very interesting business model. We've got many arms as well to LSH other than auto. We're also a property, predominantly built property. So for instance, the business here in Stockport, LSH Property, own this facility, and then we clearly operate out of here as a tenant. So not a bad landlord to have.
So, it's an enormous operation, and thank you for giving us a bit of understanding, because you've really got to look at it from a worldwide perspective, and that's when you really understand what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Stockport, and that's where you are at the moment, because this is quite a massive site, isn't it? I mean, any building that can comfortably have a 15-foot wide 3-pointed star on the roof, that I think it rotates as well. Does it rotate?
It does indeed, yeah.
Well, there we are then. So
also on the flight path purposely. So
there we are. So
best form of advertising you can get for the brand anyway.
So any site that can comfortably pull that off is pretty big. So just give us an idea of the scale of the operation you've got there.
Well, we're sitting on 10.5 acres. So if you put in perspective, the old Stockport business was 2 acres.
Wow.
And obviously clearly very congested. So to then go to 10.5 acres is from chalk and cheese, really, as you can imagine. So we have 200 people operating from this site. It's split into 2 parts. I'm actually standing in the auto house, so it's based on 3 floors, and we have all our pre-owned cars, new cars using the Mercedes-Benz MAR 2020 concept. And then we've also got an upper floor as well, which has got flexible working from offices. It's got a terrace. We've even got a golf simulator for those who love golf. But we also purposely hold AMG on a separate floor to try and differentiate between the different models and give the customer a great experience. We've then also got an adjoining building which is actually linked to the auto house, where we actually have market area, trade parts distribution. We've also got a body shop. We do the preparation for all of our used cars for the group at this facility. So we can then actually concentrate on getting the quality and standardization before they actually go out to the rest of the businesses. And it allows the other businesses to really concentrate on retail rather than actually some of the complexities around trying to manage the day-to-day challenges of a normal dealership. We can store cars up there to over 500 cars, and we've also got many other things now centralized. So our contact center, for instance, is based here. Our marketing teams are based here. Our finance hub is based here. So we've really created a bit of a city, if you like, and it's sort of been evolving from the first time when we actually conceptually drew this up in 2016 to what it is now is very different, as you can imagine. So it's a fantastic place to work. It's a great experience, but equally it comes with its challenges in terms of moving from what was a traditional dealership to clearly something that is very different indeed. So we're learning a lot as each and every day.
Yeah. Do you ever get lost?
Yeah, the amount of steps. This is what everyone measures, the steps, and it's quite scary. We've got people done like 20,000 steps a day. So it's a bit like being on a permanent, fitness regime without actually, being able to go to the gym.
Yeah.
But it is. But yeah, you're trying to we're not tracking people, but clearly we've got to have lots of robust processes and also trying to pull people together. So we've got lots of one team offices where we're improving efficiencies around communication and people working together rather than working in the silos. Again, sort of something which has traditionally been our trait, I guess, in the auto industry.
Yeah. So with such a large site, customer service levels must take on a whole new meaning, really, because you've got to try and help that customer through the whole showroom, whichever part they're in, really. So, yeah. I mean, it must present its own sort of challenges, really.
It really does. It really does. You would think that actually we sort of have customers at hello, when they come through, the wow factor, absolutely. And then how do we keep up those high levels? The expectations are even higher when you come into this business. I think what we've tried to do is we've tried to, again, as alluded to earlier, is work to very much remove the barriers. So, for instance, we don't use the term sales executive in this business. You're a customer experience partner, and then you're either a specialism in after sales or sales. But the idea is that the customer sees us on one level. And I think that's, again, been very much a journey for us, because that is just removing silos, and it's encouraging people to flex as much of their ability as they possibly can. So if you're confident with your knowledge and you can go beyond your current role, then we encourage you to do that with the customer. Equally, it can present itself a challenge with that, because we don't want to stretch people too far beyond their knowledge. Because of the physical size of the business, it's 110 meters long. So we've got a great host team that actually start the baton really running, and then they really manage the majority of the space. And then we have to then bring in other elements, whether it be after sales or sales. And then we also have a team of people that hand over cars. So it's actually more like a manufacturing type of process in production, in terms of building the car, in terms of the metalwork and the welding, right the way through to the quality control at the very, very end. And how we've managed to try and do that is trying to feel so it's a bit seamless for the customer. So it's an overall customer experience, rather than maybe the same person who met you at the door, sat down with you, maybe sold you a car, and then even handed it over. We're trying to improve efficiencies and trying to improve the engagement across the whole business, rather than actually just with that one person. So you can imagine when we're going through those sorts of changes, we're working with new people coming into the industry, which is fantastic, but also people that have been very successful for a number of years with the brand and also with our company, and having to work with those to make those adjustments. We are challenging in a different way, but also rewarding to see them adapt to it and then see the benefits from it in operating very differently.
Yeah. Well, that sort of preempts my sort of next question, really, which is you've got people sort of like front of house who are welcoming customers in. Surely you must be sort of employing people from outside of the industry to help you with that. I'm probably thinking like, high-end shops or hotels, or people with skills which are not actually born from the motor trade, but, have got a wider experience pool.
And I think that's what's refreshing, and that's the bit I absolutely love, to be fair, about trying to have a different concept to your business. It's quite refreshing when you sit and you meet the team, and they get to know a little bit about me. When you actually go around the table and find out that actually the majority of people aren't from the automotive industry, and it's not that we don't want to bring people to our business, and no, it's not the case. But it's refreshing to see that we are actually attracting people from John Lewis, from the hotel industry, and also other areas, also younger people as well. That's the great thing, is that the brand is very much an icon. This is very much a destination, but successfully, even since we've been open in 12 months, the people that joined us, the colleagues that joined us as hosts, have now successfully worked their way and progressed through the business. So it's actually a real career for them, which is what we want. We want to promote our own people and be seen as an employer of choice, and that's really, really pivotal to our long-term strategy.
Mm, mm. So the dealership is very much a destination. And do you think that's how retail in the motor trade has got to change a little bit? You know, the large showrooms have got to be destinations. It can't just be customers turning up on a Saturday morning and just sort of, you know, just browsing stock. Dealerships have got to take on a new role, you know, in the 21st century, really.
100%. And this was all part of our research before we built something like this. Is that we done our homework, but I think even more so now, you've got to give people a reason to come and see you. You know, yes, it's got to be around people and good customer service. Obviously, working with a fantastic brand like Mercedes, that certainly helps. You know, they're an excellent partner, very supportive. But equally, you've got to give them other reasons to come. And I think what we've seen with our business in Stockport and also our new business in the Midlands in Erdington is that this environment just attracts, you know, lots of inquiries, and people want to come. Particularly, you mentioned weekends. In the sort of traditional landscape, I think that was dwindling in terms of people going out to shop. People would do a lot more online and actually would be more specific around appointments. At Stockport and Erdington, in particular, you see lots of people still arrive at weekends and also later in the day as well. So that presents itself with, you know, another, I guess, thing to consider for us in terms of actually how do we cover those peak times. So it's a very much more of a retail, true retail dynamic rather than the traditional landscape as we know, and we actually sort of kind of got still across some of our other sites, clearly.
Yeah, yeah. It must be a challenge, though, actually getting people into the door. I mean, I'm sure there are lots of people who are, you know, they want to come in and see the whole car range. They want to experience Mercedes-Benz, but there must be some people who are a little bit concerned about going in. They see the wall-to-wall glass. They see, you know, what could be, for some people, a potentially off-putting experience. So it must be a challenge.
It is, and it's to make it personal. And we're still working with that. Even when you come in, it's got a very, you know, very vast high ceiling. You know, it's got obviously clearly a lot of depth to the building. So it's really moving, I guess, the business closer to the door. So it's got a smaller feel, a more personal feel when you come in. And then, you know, clearly directing customers. The wayfinding alone is challenging, as you can imagine, particularly now in the situation where we're only operating with appointments. So if you come to this business, we will only allow you to explore the business if you're guided and gone round for obvious reasons. But what we have learned also, and we're about to make some investment into the front of the business, is I think we've also learned that you can't put customers necessarily through the same experience as well. So, you know, why do we try and do that and put ourselves under enormous pressure when actually we can do that successfully through signage? We can do a lot more pre the visit. So i.e. we've got express check-in at Stockport now, for instance. So you don't have to wait to be greeted. You don't have to wait for a service advisor to be able to look after you. You can pre-book online. You can come in. You can check in like you would in an airport, and you drop your keys and you go. And those are the sorts of things that we're now going to bring into the front of the building as well, in terms of you now don't even need to come into the business, because if you don't need to speak to necessarily anyone, if there's nothing wrong with your car and you merely want, you know, a very slick service, why do we put ourselves under enormous pressure to do that? So, and we've only really learnt that by doing what we've done in terms of being more adventurous around the space. And if you're then a second visit to the business, why need to come in? We're creating a second entrance where you can come and maybe collect your car through a different experience. So, you know, we're very much learning, but I think that's the thing to take away from this, is that actually is when you can look at something on a drawing and think that's your knowledge is what you've known. It's not necessarily what the customers want and what could be done better. So it's constantly evolving, I guess, those processes to be a lot more customer centric. So
I can imagine it's pretty easy to keep 2 meters apart from everybody there, though, because it's so vast.
And I think the thing is everybody, I think when you looked on LinkedIn, everyone went sticker crazy as well, didn't they?
Yes.
Banners and everything like that. I need for Boris to say it's a meter plus. So I think someone's really benefited in terms of redoing that. But it was just impossible to do it here. And you don't, you can't literally have that amount of point of sale. So what we've done that is through very much a human touch point, and everybody sanitizes before they come in, whether you're a colleague or a visitor, customer, and then we look after them through that. Our smaller businesses have clearly had the same challenges as everybody else, and have had to be a lot more prescribed in terms of disciplines around that. But they've been fantastic, and I think that's one thing which our industry is really good at, is quickly adapting to those sorts of changes. And I think I think LSH, along with many others, have had to adapt very, very quickly.
Yeah. Now, online car sales. Now, we've been talking about them for probably a decade now, and of course, during coronavirus, more people wanted to transact online. Is LSH actually going to be investing in such large dealerships like Stockport in the future? Do you think the days of online car sales are going to be a death knell for big showrooms?
I think not, because all of the things that I've just said earlier, really, very much people still want a destination. I think what we have got to recognise the fact is they need to be fewer. And actually less of. So I see it very much a different landscape, for instance, within a market area. You typically have one destination, and then representative businesses that can still offer and support things like online through click and collect, but also obviously from an after sales perspective. So I still think that you have to be realistic in terms of the demographic, because not everyone will travel 2 hours, for instance, if they can get what they want on nearby. So no, I think it's right in the right place, and it has to complement everything else that you do. And I think what we have done in LSH is we have learned and adapted really quickly. So when we've done Stockport, clearly that had to have other things that came into that business, which enabled the other businesses really to flourish and complement. And that is really a change curve, because trying to tell an after sales manager that they no longer need to do internal preparation and the used car manager that this is the group standard, when they've always had maybe control of their own standards. Those things are legacies. They're not wrong, because they were right at that particular time. But trying to get people to adapt to the change and to see the benefits to that, you have to go through that. And I think that for us is really important, that actually we try and do the right thing and move the business forward, but equally we can't stay still. And I think that's what the bigger destinations allow you to be able to do, is complement your digital platform. And a good example of that is in lockdown. You can purchase a car from end to end on our website, and people were purchasing cars in that way, and we were obviously seeing a lot. We completely turned the phones off, and we were doing all of engagement through online chat and those platforms, and those are the things that we're going to invest in further to enhance those. But we actually done a service where we actually offered to deliver to people's doors. But the promising thing from that was that still the majority of people wanted to come in and collect their car, which really is a great message for any retailer to know that actually, that's the part that customers still like. It won't necessarily be for everyone, but certainly we saw very few people wanted their cars delivered to their home and wanted to come in and get the experience, which is great.
Yeah, and that's part of representing Mercedes-Benz, isn't it? Because there's a reason why people buy a Mercedes-Benz over any other brand, because they've invested in the whole ethos of the company, haven't they? So buying it and transacting online is one thing, but actually wanting to go and pick it up, I can understand why people want to do that, because they've bought into it, haven't they?
100%. It's still the unique selling point, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
the fact that you can feel it, touch it, experience it. That is what our brand has been built on.
Yeah.
You know, Mercedes racing heritage alone, you know, it's something that people still want to come and see. You know, the technology and you know, Mercedes clearly pushed that to a very high level, and we want to be able to demonstrate that. And you can't do that through online. You can bring it to life through YouTube videos and how-tos, and those sorts of things have become very popular, and I think they're absolutely fantastic. But people want to see it and touch it, which is great. One of the things that we have done during lockdown is accelerated some of our changes. So, for instance, now if you go online, what we did identify is that we probably weren't as transparent as we were right across our group. So, to give you an indication, you could probably start your journey in one of our businesses and get a price for a car. You might then drive to within 30 minutes and go to one of the other businesses, and that would be a slightly different price. We also identified the fact that when you come in at different times of the month, the price can vary. The price might vary online. So we've launched the LSH Promise, which is actually where it's the same pricing across all of our businesses. And again, that's a big cultural change for our teams, as you can imagine, and it's also a brave move. But with the analytics that we're doing behind it, I believe it gives us real, I guess, a lead on everybody else, where they're still transacting through a one pricing, depending on the day and depending on who you speak to type of approach. Yeah. And I think you have to have everything joined up. You can't build things like we've built without having trust and transparency for customers. And I know Mercedes have done that with putting all their product on online showroom, which has been a great move. And actually, we've just embraced that even further by having transparency all across our businesses.
So how's the September order bank looking, and what's your general view of the new car and the used car market as well?
We can't help. It's been very, very confident since we've been back. But of course, when you look at the numbers, you know, it's hurt us dearly. It's a bit of a bow wave, isn't it? And I think as much as I'm optimistic, I'm still very, very cautious to the fact that, you know, I think that it's inevitable that things could potentially get tough in quarter four. So I guess with us, the great news for us is we've got over 90% of our colleagues back. So we've got 92% as we stand today. And we're really, I guess, trying to fulfill all the inquiries that we've got coming in. So we are down. It's inevitable, like every other dealer group, and we're not going to be able to recover the deficit. But certainly, what it does enable us to do is I guess, tread with caution as we go forward in fulfilling as much opportunity as we can, but to have a mind that actually we need to be a bit leaner and a bit tighter in our stock holding, for instance. And certainly be aware of some of the changes that I think will become quite challenging at the end of the year.
Have you experienced this craze in used cars over the past few months? Have you seen lots of people wanting to buy used?
I think we've not seen it as strong as, for instance, the lower end of the market. You know, where people have, but refreshingly, of course, we have. You know, it's been. We've found that also residual values have been very strong. Anything that we've had that we have sent to the auction is retained very, very good margin. So that's really, really confident. I guess after a while that catches up. So anything that we now purchase is at a higher price. But we certainly have, that's been really, really encouraging. Very, very encouraging. And actually the mix of cars, you know, we've done very well with AMG. And if you'd have probably asked me during lockdown what were the cars that maybe would have been kind of more challenging, you would have said that maybe that top end market might have been a bit difficult, but actually, you know, that's not been the case. Of course, A-Class remains still very, very popular, and also we've got some new models that are coming through from Mercedes as well, not just at the end of the year but sort of early part of the year. So things like GLB has now gained more awareness, and it is now increasing its sales, so that's very, very positive.
So lastly, Martin, I mean, what's the future of LSH? I mean, are you going to try and keep what you've started at Stockport? Are you going to try and translate that to other businesses and other parts of the country?
We've already started to do that in our processes. So we now, I think for me, the biggest thing to concentrate on is consolidate what we have, standardize and get consistencies on every single business that you come in within our group. And we know that is a challenge for all businesses. But I'm very, very confident that we've made some really good inroads with that. And I think the LSH promise is a great starting point for us, and we can build on that. In terms of future destinations like this, I think we still have probably a couple of projects in us, in terms of some of our businesses don't represent. We're very much aware of that. For instance, Solihull and Tamworth are two businesses where we need to enhance and look to change those businesses to a newer, fresher destination type of feel. But I think what we are doing is spending a lot more time on those projects now to actually understand, do they need to be necessarily as big as what they used to, we've done here in Stockport. I think the case is they don't. And actually, how do we make them a lot more customer centric, and how do the bigger destinations like Erdington and Stockport complement those businesses? So I think we've sort of really ripped up and we're about to sort of start again, but very much in terms of the investment in the brand and in areas where we have underinvested over the years. We certainly need to continue with our journey with that.
Fascinating. We're going to have to leave it there, Martin, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us from Stockport, because I mean, that particular shot, I mean, if the dealership is only half as good as it is there, it must be an amazing sight. So incredible. Thank you very much indeed.
No, thanks a lot, James. Great to be here. Bye.
Pleasure. Now, if you want to be involved in the Car Dealer Live just like this one, then please do email me, james.batchelor@blackballmedia.co.uk. Until Monday, when we're back on air, have a lovely weekend, and bye-bye.